Okay, so here we are at the outset of the short story unit, and we're going to look at the short story introduction, and then we're going to look at SS1. I've put all of SS1 onto this one handout, if you will, to make it easier for you, but if you just want to look at bits, there's an example here in the assignment there. A lot of the information on the introduction is for the whole unit rather than before you do the first one, and I will lead you through tutorials on plot and on theme as well. So if we click on here, we get this. Isn't that jazzy? I guess snapshot. So this is a very brief overview of the unit. So there's 4 assignments in the short story unit and a unit exam. The first exercise is a plot exercise using a fairy tale to outline plot events and theme. And then there's a short story that focuses on character. And then there's a short story that focuses on literary writing. And then the last story focuses on how to write a full literary essay. As well, there's suggested timelines for each assignment, and basically all the assignments and everything in the unit could range within 10 to 13 hours to do the whole thing. So we'll talk about budgeting your time and figuring out a plan as well. Then there's a tutorial using a short film. These are the short story terms that we're going to look at. And then this is one way that you could potentially study them using Quizlet, and I've created some sets there for you. So that was our first look. So that we've looked at that. Now we're going to look at the whole SS1 assignment together. So I put all of the stuff for short story 1 on one document for you to look at here, so it might make it easier for you. It's actually a pretty simple assignment. You have to do the tutorials here, and then you read the assignment. And the assignment is basically using a fairy tale. You'll fill out and discuss plot. As well, you'll talk about theme. So you're looking at what happens and what it means. So to give you a little introduction to plot is this lovely chart here. And basically what it says is this. This is what happens. This is the sequence of events of a story. That's what plot is. It's what happens. Theme, which we're going to talk about after, is what does it mean? What happened. So plot is very basically this happened, and then that happened, and so on. So it's basically what somebody tells you about a movie when you don't necessarily want to hear every detail, but they're just telling you the overview of the plot as you go. I'm sure you've seen this diagram before. And basically, most of the story happens before we reach the climax. So let's say, 70 or so % of the story probably happens before we hit that turning point. And then the falling action is a lot less than the building of the rising action. So just to give a brief introduction to some of these terms, exposition is introduction, so it's the introduction before the story starts. It might tell you who the characters are, or the setting where things are going on, or something about the background to the story. And then something happens. This is the initial incident. It's the first event. Something happens to start the story in motion, and that will have conflict. Because conflict is what creates interest and excitement and problems and a reason to be involved. And the protagonist, who's the main character, has to have some reason to move forward. So the main character either has a problem to solve or a goal to reach. And all that is sort of held up here by problems and issues and difficulties within the rising action, which rises up to the climax. Rising action is also known as a complication, and there are 3 different primary kinds of conflicts that could occur. So human versus human versus self, human versus environment, and it may be all of those that are happening. And then off we go to sort of the peak of the story, and we're all excited and we don't know how things are going to turn out, and suddenly there's some hint. There's some hint about things are going to turn one way or the other. And that is the turning point. And you can see the turning point literally on the diagram. So the climax is that turn in the action. And we may not know exactly what's going to happen, but we have some sort of idea. After that, it's the falling action. Things just fall until we reach the very end conclusion here. So here there's sorting out of details, maybe subplots. Those are the plot actions. So basically, that is your overall plot structure. And we need to understand that in order to discuss what the story means. So first we need to know what happens, then we need to know what it means. So the next tutorial here is on theme. And I'm not going to go over it in great detail with you. I'm just going to point out to you that it is there, and there is some information that you need to know. There are 2 different tutorials on theme, so there's a lot of information, and I'm going to say that theme is the most important concept. It is. Everything in the story, everything in the literature is united around themes or messages. What is the theme? The theme of a piece of literature is its controlling idea or its central insight. It's a generalization about life that's revealed by the story, but that also applies in real life. So basically, what idea or insight or understanding about people, relationships, life does the story reveal? That is the theme. So I often ask people, what's the theme of this story or that? And say, oh, motherhood. But motherhood is just a word. A theme has to be a statement. So you say motherhood is the theme. No, it's not. But motherhood sometimes creates frustrations, but also has numerous rewards. Now there's a statement with meaning. And not only does it have meaning, but if it were the theme of a story, it would also apply to mothers in real life. So it has that power, and that is the power of the theme. Then here's a whole bunch of rules to tell you how to state theme, and another broad example here from Hamlet to look at a character and see how do I figure out what the theme is from reading something. So this little passage here, Claudius is the main guy. So Claudius is the wrongful king. He has bumped off his brother to steal the king position, and he's the king and he's acting like the king, but there's all kinds of things going wrong in the kingdom because he isn't the rightful king, and the king is ruling by divine right. So when you've had this wrong king, everything goes wrong all the way up to and including that basically his evil kills him. So if we look at the main character, Claudius, he wants to be king. He kills his brother to become king, and in the end, he can't do it. He dies. So looking at someone who's evil like that, what can we kind of understand? His behavior shows that when one is corrupt and perpetrates evil, he ultimately destroys himself. So when a person does horrible things, hopefully horrible things will happen to him or her, right? And that is an example of theme. Now the second thematic tutorial is in your supports file, and you probably want to have a look at that because it's got examples on there as well. Okay, so then the next thing that we want to do is look at the assignment that you have and how to do it. And so we can look at the assignment or we can look at the tutorial first. And I'm going to say, if I can find it, let's look at the assignment. So let's look at the assignment before we look at the tutorial, because in a way, that makes a lot of sense. It can make things a lot easier for us. So what do we need to do? We need to have an online traditional fairy tale and give it to Sabrina. Then we need to look at the plot steps, which we've just done. We've just looked at the basic plot. Need to understand theme, which we've just done as well. So then basically you pick a fairy tale from this list. If you want something else, we need to talk. You need to let me know and have my consent, because I need to know the fairy tale in order to mark the assignment. So then you're going to answer these components, and there's a chart for you to fill out. And then you're going to write and explain a statement of theme. So on this assignment page, it gives you the diagram, and there's a template under supports, and then it asks you also to state the theme. Here's places where you can look at and study short story theory if you want to do more than that. So that's the assignment, but what does the tutorial look like? Well, that's important too, right? So here we have the example. Says, find your fairy tale, look at the short story terms, plot and outline, and do your assignment. That's basically the assignment. I used The Boy Who Cried Wolf as the example. It's a well-known fairy tale. And then I've taken the plot of that and put it into bits here, just like you are going to do. So, for example, the background given in the fairy tale is that the main character, Peter, is 10. He lives with his parents. They had sheep and were shepherds. He's now old enough to take a turn at shepherding. So that's sort of the first thing that sets things in motion, is it's his turn to go and be a shepherd. It's the olden days. We know this because of what the people are doing, and it's a small village, and everybody knows everybody else and is reliant upon one another. So that's our sort of setup to it. And then what happens? Rising action and conflicts. Well, Peter lies and he's immature. He goes out to be a shepherd and he pretends there's a wolf there. The whole community comes running to help and protect him, and he just laughs at him. And he does this again and again. Over time, nobody believes him anymore and nobody goes. And then guess what? A real wolf comes and he calls for help and no one comes. No one comes to help him because he's a liar and they know he's a liar. And the next person who's going to herd the sheep, not sheeps, will find the mess. And then, concluding action, Peter isn't laughing anymore. He's sobered from the experience. He's had a frightening time and was afraid, and he learned something from his experience. So that's what happened. What does it mean? Well, it means that if a person is repeatedly dishonest, others will stop believing in him or her, and they won't come help when it's truly needed. Doesn't that make sense? So based on that, we can get that meaning. Or a person cannot expect to get help from others when he or she's been a liar in the past. And can I prove it? Yes, because I have to prove it. So Peter lied and said there was a wolf, and there wasn't. And then he laughed at everybody, and then nobody came anymore. And when a real wolf came, no one came to help him, and a lot of sheep died needlessly, and Peter was not respected or believed by anyone. Obviously, it was a learning situation. So that is what you're going to do. You're going to pick your fairy tale. You're going to read it. You're going to make a plot diagram, and you're going to discuss theme as revealed by that fairy tale. And then you're going to send it to me, and I will have a look at it and give you some feedback and a grade. And then you will move on to SS2. So that's the end of your SS1 tutorial for now.